The incredible story of Stephen Hawking. Hello and welcome, everyone. I hope you all are doing great. Today I am back with another incredible and powerful biography story that will not only inspire you, but also help you improve your English. Today, I bring you the story of one of the greatest minds in history, Stephen Hawking. On January 8, 1942, a baby boy was born in Oxford, England. His name was Stephen Hawking. No one knew then that this baby would one day be one of the smartest people in the world. Stephen was born during World War II. It was a hard time in England. There was not much food. There were bombs falling. But his family was safe in Oxford. Stephen's parents were very smart. His father, Frank, was a doctor who studied medicine. His mother, Isabel, went to Oxford University at a time when few women did. They loved books and learning. The Hawking family had 4 children, Stephen, Mary, Philippa, and Edward. They were not rich, but they lived in a big old house. The house was always cold. It did not have good heating. The Hawking family was a bit unusual. At dinner, everyone would eat while reading books. They kept bees in the basement. They made fireworks in the garden. They fixed old clocks and radios. As a child, Stephen was curious about everything. He wanted to know how things worked. He would take apart clocks and radios to see what was inside. Sometimes he could not put them back together. At school, Stephen was good at math and science, but he was not always the best student. His handwriting was messy. He did not always pay attention in class. He liked to think about his own ideas. His teachers and friends knew he was smart, though. They called him Einstein. Stephen could solve hard problems in ways no one else thought of. He asked questions that even teachers could not answer. Stephen had many friends. He was funny and liked to make jokes. He was part of a group called the TOPS. They talked about science, religion, and life. They made up games and had fun together. When Stephen was 17, he went to Oxford University. He studied physics, the science of how the universe works. He did not work very hard at first. He found the classes too easy. He got bored. But in his last year at Oxford, Stephen began to have some health problems. He became clumsy. He fell down for no reason. His speech became slurred. Something was wrong. After finishing at Oxford, Stephen went to Cambridge University to study for a higher degree. He wanted to learn about black holes, space, and time. But his health got worse. In 1963, when Stephen was just 21 years old, doctors gave him terrible news. He had ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, a disease that makes the body's muscles stop working. The doctors said he would live for only 2 or 3 more years. Stephen was shocked and sad. He thought his life and dreams were over. For a while, he did not see the point in continuing his studies. Why bother if he was going to die soon? But then something wonderful happened. Stephen fell in love with a girl named Jane Wilde. She was studying languages at university. She was smart, pretty, and kind. Jane saw past Stephen's disease. She loved his mind, his humor, and his spirit. She believed in him when he did not believe in himself. In 1965, they got married. With Jane's love and support, Stephen found a new purpose. He decided that if he did not have much time left, he would use it to solve the biggest questions about the universe. The doctors were wrong about Stephen. He did not die after 2 or 3 years, but the disease did get worse. Slowly, he lost the ability to walk. He needed a wheelchair to move around. His hands became weak. He could not write equations anymore. His speech became harder to understand. Only close friends and family could make out his words. But something amazing happened. While Stephen's body became weaker, his mind became stronger. He started to think about the universe in new ways. He had ideas that no one else had thought of. Stephen found ways to adapt. If he could not write, he would solve problems in his head. If he could not speak clearly, he would use simple words. He never gave up. By the late 1970s, Stephen could barely speak at all. People had to listen very carefully to understand him. This made teaching and giving talks very hard. Then technology helped him. First, he used a spelling board. He would move his eyes or finger to choose letters. Later, he got a special computer. He could control it with a button pushed by his hand. When even that became too hard, he used a switch attached to his cheek. A small movement of his cheek muscle could control the computer. The computer would speak for him in a robot-like voice. Despite his physical problems, Stephen's mind soared. He thought about the biggest questions. How did the universe begin? What happens inside black holes? Will the universe ever end? In the 1970s, Stephen made his most famous discovery. He found that black holes are not completely black. They give off a special kind of light, now called Hawking radiation. This was revolutionary. Scientists had thought that nothing could escape from a black hole. Stephen showed they were wrong. His discovery changed how we understand space, time, and gravity. Stephen wrote his ideas in a book called A Brief History of Time. He wanted regular people, not just scientists, to understand the universe. The book came out in 1988 and became a huge success. A Brief History of Time sold millions of copies around the world. It was translated into many languages. Stephen became famous not just as a scientist, but as a writer who could explain hard ideas in simple ways. Stephen and Jane had 3 children, Robert, Lucy, and Timothy. Family life was not easy. Jane had to take care of the children and Stephen. It was like having 4 children, not 3. As Stephen became more famous, life got even harder. People wanted his time and attention. He traveled to give talks. He appeared on TV shows. Jane often felt left behind. After many years, their marriage broke down. In 1995, Stephen married his nurse, Elaine Mason. This marriage also ended after 11 years. Despite these personal troubles, Stephen stayed close to his children. His daughter Lucy wrote children's books with him about space and science. His son Robert became a software engineer. Timothy worked in marketing. Stephen was proud of his children. He said they were his greatest achievement, even more important than his scientific work. By the 1990s, Stephen Hawking was known all over the world. He was not just a scientist anymore. He was a celebrity. People who knew nothing about physics knew his name. He appeared on TV shows like The Simpsons and Star Trek. He gave speeches to thousands of people. He met presidents and queens. He even floated in zero gravity on a special airplane. Stephen received many honors. He was made a commander of the British Empire by the Queen. He won the Presidential Medal of Freedom from the United States. He got many science prizes. Cambridge University gave him a special position, the same position that Isaac Newton had almost 300 years before. This was one of the highest honors a scientist could get. But Stephen did not let fame change him. He kept his sense of humor. He made bets with other scientists about big questions. He continued to work on hard problems. He never stopped thinking and learning. As Stephen became more famous, he used his voice, through his computer, to speak about important issues. He was worried about climate change. He warned that humans must take care of Earth. He was concerned about nuclear weapons. He said they could destroy all life on our planet. He asked world leaders to get rid of these dangerous weapons. He thought about artificial intelligence, AI. He said AI could be the best thing for humanity or the worst thing. It depends on how we use it. He believed humans should explore space. He said we should go to other planets. This would help the human race survive if something bad happened to Earth. Stephen said science and religion ask different kinds of questions. Science asks how things work. Religion asks why things exist. Both are important for understanding our world. As Stephen got older, his body became even weaker. He could move only a few muscles in his face. He needed 24-hour care. He got pneumonia several times and nearly died. But his mind stayed sharp. He continued to work on physics problems. He wrote more books. He gave speeches using his computer voice. He never stopped thinking about the universe. In his later years, Stephen worried about the future of humanity. He said we face many dangers: nuclear war, climate change, new diseases, asteroid strikes. But he believed we could solve these problems. He said, however difficult life may seem, there is always something you can do and succeed at. It matters that you don't just give up. Despite everything, Stephen kept his sense of humor. When asked about his IQ, how smart he was, he said, I have no idea. People who boast about their IQ are losers. When asked how he felt about his disease, he said, my expectations were reduced to 0 when I was 21. Everything since then has been a bonus. On March 14, 2018, Stephen Hawking died peacefully at his home in Cambridge. He was 76 years old. He had lived more than 50 years longer than doctors said he would. The news of his death spread quickly around the world. Scientists, world leaders, and ordinary people all paid tribute to him. Many said he was the greatest scientist since Albert Einstein. Stephen's funeral was held at a church in Cambridge. His coffin was carried by 6 of his colleagues from Cambridge University. Many famous scientists came to say goodbye. Later, Stephen's ashes were buried in Westminster Abbey in London. This is a great honor. He was buried near the graves of Isaac Newton and Charles Darwin, 2 other great scientists. At the burial ceremony, Stephen's words were beamed into space by a radio telescope. The message was sent toward the nearest black hole. It was a perfect way to say goodbye. Stephen Hawking taught us many things about black holes, the Big Bang, and the universe. His scientific work will be studied for hundreds of years. But he taught us even more important lessons about life. He showed that physical limits do not have to limit the mind. He proved that even the worst situations can be overcome. When he was diagnosed with ALS, doctors gave him 2 years to live. He lived for 55 more years. He did not just survive, he changed our understanding of the universe. Stephen never felt sorry for himself. He said, it would not be much of a universe if it wasn't home to the people you love. He focused on what he could do, not what he couldn't do. He kept his sense of humor. He loved to tell jokes. He made fun of himself. He showed that you can face terrible problems with a smile. He believed in the power of the human mind. He said, intelligence is the ability to adapt to change. He adapted to his disease in amazing ways. He inspired millions of people. Many of them had nothing to do with science. They saw his courage and felt stronger in their own lives. Today, Stephen Hawking's work continues to inspire scientists around the world. Young people read his books and dream of exploring the universe. His ideas about black holes are still being tested and explored. The computer voice he used became so much a part of him that when the technology improved, he kept the old robot-like voice. People all over the world recognize that voice. Movies have been made about his life. The most famous is The Theory of Everything from 2014. It shows his early life, his struggles with disease, and his relationship with Jane. The Stephen Hawking Foundation continues his work. It supports research into ALS and other motor neuron diseases. It also promotes science education and works to make science accessible to everyone. Perhaps Stephen's greatest legacy is hope. He showed that even in the darkest situations, the human spirit can shine. He proved that limitations can be overcome. He demonstrated that the power of the mind can triumph over the weakness of the body. When we look at the stars at night, we see the same universe that fascinated Stephen Hawking. We see the black holes he studied. We see the space and time he tried to understand. Stephen once said, "Look up at the stars and not down at your feet. Try to make sense of what you see and wonder about what makes the universe exist. Be curious." This is his message to us all. Be curious. Ask questions. Never stop wondering. Never stop learning. Never give up, no matter what problems you face. Stephen's life was not easy. He faced challenges most of us cannot imagine. But he lived a full, rich life. He made discoveries that changed science. He wrote books that inspired millions. He loved and was loved. His story reminds us that our bodies may be weak, but our spirits can be strong. Our lives may be short, but our impact can be eternal. Our problems may be great, but our determination can be greater. In Stephen's own words, remember to look up at the stars and not down at your feet. However difficult life may seem, there is always something you can do and succeed at. It matters that you don't just give up. This is the incredible legacy of Stephen Hawking. This is what we can learn from his amazing life. This is how we can honor his memory, by facing our own challenges with courage, curiosity, and a smile.